He is a person also, he's from Senate District, he represents Senate District 7, which is, covers the Cypress area. Very active, and another patriot who is in the middle of the battle all the time. If you see the paper, look on TV, go to meetings, he's around. So without further ado, I want to introduce Mr. Paul Bettencourt, and he's our last speaker for the evening.
Well, I referred that to as one reporter today who asked me. I said it's like I'm in the eye of a hurricane right now. I'm watching wind on all 360-degree quarters. I want to thank Tom for being a good person to work with. Okay, because we have carried the big election bills, which are just critical to taking back our elections from leftist, progressive, socialists, quite frankly, freakazoids, okay? Because that's what they are, okay? And there's two bills. The one bill that Briscoe had, Kane, was the one that wiped out the elections administrator office and returned it back to elected officials, okay? Now, CNN called me, Tom. They called me yesterday in the middle of all this other stuff. And they wanted to run a special on that because they knew something was wrong with this. And when I got through explaining that it was a bunch of Republicans wanting to give elections administration back to two Democrat elected officials who happen to be black females and therefore it couldn't be racist, they didn't run the story. Shocked. They didn't run the story. But the worldwide, let's see, I was on the World Socialist website. Did y'all see that? I made the bill number one. I was number one for these two bills, 1750 and 1933. Okay. Now they did right. Now they didn't pull Tom and Briscoe through. Sorry, Tom, you missed your big day in the sun. Okay. But Lena was blowing her head off, and so the Socialist World website was giving her air cover. So I posted it. I mean, there's no question. They view her bill as a socialist. They know she is. Okay? Now, these are two bills, and I literally pray that those bills are not vetoed, because I don't know what would happen at that point in time. Now, Tom mentioned a bill that shouldn't have been vetoed. I'll say it, because I don't think that bill should have been vetoed, because I don't think vetoing good government bills is doing anything to help the process on getting property tax relief. I'll give you an example of another bill that got vetoed yesterday, because I know Lieutenant Governor Patrick was up in Dallas talking about this. The Dallas County District Attorney's Office came. Now, is Dallas County Republican or Democrat? Democrat. Okay. They've been run over by a rash of organized crime rings that basically, was ever anybody in the fuel business, the convenience store business? Okay. Well, basically, what they do is they disable what are called the fuel dispenser pulsars, and they could basically override the entire control system, and they bring up a big tanker truck, 11,600 gallons, and they just suck the place dry, okay? And then they drive off and they bring up another truck and they suck it dry, the other tanks, and they're gone. Now, they brought in all the mechanical equipment, electronic, it's basically old motherboards that basically do overrides on these things. The only reason why they exist is organized crime builds them, and then they steal stuff. So that was Senate Bill 1467, and it was a great hearing in criminal justice by John Whitmire. Passed out unanimously, passed out in the Senate unanimously, hit the House floor, passed 144-4. I don't even know who the four were. No. Okay, all right, and it got vetoed. So I've got that on Team Bettencourt on Twitter, okay, because that's not a bill that should be vetoed, okay? Because, Alexi, you're right, it takes a lot of time to restart these things over, okay? Now, look, everybody can have a different opinion about property taxes. Tom and I don't have the exact same opinion, but we're not beating each other up and vetoing each other's bills, okay? Now, unfortunately, that's occurring now. And I've had two other Senate bills go down. One of them, because you guys are patriots would understand this. Okay, in Amarillo, the city council decided that they wanted to build a $250 million Howard Convention Center for Amarillo. That'd be like $1 to $2 billion George R. Brown thing down here. Be huge in Amarillo. The citizens gave them what? Thumbs up or down? Tell me. Down. So they decided to wire around the public vote. So they created a tax increment reinvestment zone. Okay? All right? And then they gave themselves the ability to use TANs, revenue TANs, or tax anticipation notes. So they were going to finance this whole puppy right around the public vote. Now, a guy named Alex Fairley sued him, and he could be a charter member of the Tea Party. It probably is. I just don't know. I don't know Amarillo politics enough to know. But he said he had enough, and he put his own money in the lawsuit, and he won it. Because he said, SB2, a bill that Tom voted for, that I carried, you know, you're wiring around the public vote, and this is illegal. Judge agreed. So we wrote a bill to stop it from ever happening, because I didn't know this, but my leftist member of my local government committee, former Judge Eckhart, now Senator Eckhart, she did this with the Travis County courthouse, and she freely admitted in the hearing, and she said she wanted to vote for the bill because she didn't want that flexibility to be taken away.
Wow.
Okay?
Wow.
So we took it away. Okay, that's right. All right? And that was Senate Bill, I think it's 2039, if I remember correctly, because you can't let people's taxes get raised without their consent, especially, Howard, when they've already said no. That bill got vetoed. Very disappointing, okay? So I hope this stops, because it needs to, because it's not doing anybody any good, okay? Now, what is doing people good is he's got a good friend that I spoke to last night that actually understands numbers, okay? And we had a really good conversation about what we could do on property taxes. And that's going on anyway. The difference is the Senate is still in session. They've decided he died, but I can get Tom on the phone and I can see him. So I got his friend, we got his friend on the phone, courtesy of Chairman Huffman too. And had a good conversation, okay? Because that's what the legislative process is all about, okay? You have to have talks, otherwise you don't have talks. And the great news is, no offense to Tom, I found somebody that knows numbers in the House. I've been looking for that person for about 4 months, okay? And because everybody's got specialties, okay? You know, and you know, the doctors carry certain bills, the tax man carries numbers bills. Everybody will try to be helpful to everyone, especially in a Republican majority environment. So I'm hopeful all this will work out. But it is quite a bit of theatrics, okay, in the meantime. And, you know, I've been through theatrics before, okay? Because the biggest theatrics we're gonna have is when those election bills go into effect. Because Tara, they're already, the people's leftist progressive socialist heads have blown off all the way from Harris County to the worldwide socialist website. Because we, Republican and independents and the citizens of the third largest county in America, decided to take back their own elections. Okay? All right? I mean, we're taking it back. Now, the Briscoe's bill, we do the big swap. But that's how it used to be. See, elections used to run with a Republican tax assessor being a voter registrar. That was me, and Beverly Kaufman, who was the county clerk. And then it became Stan Standard, and then it became a whole bunch of our friends as tax assessors, the last one being Mike Sullivan. And even Ann Bennett and Teresa Husbeth, who are the two officers now, will do a far better job than Clifford Tatum, who still refuses to answer questions like Lena Hidalgo does of what happened in the election over 8 months later. You realize that? We had an election. So, Uncle Paul did one other thing, but I do want to credit Tom with the 1933. We had another bill you filed, it was 823, and we kind of sent that in there to stir everybody up. We said, you know what? The Secretary of State can fire an election administrator. Well, well, we kind of knew he was kind of cannon fodder. But the ACLU testified in my hearing, or I think it was in Reggie Smith's, right? Okay, we need to get him down for a press conference. He wants to come down. And so in the press conference, in the hearing, the ACLU nurse said, you know what, we're going to fire, if you pass that bill, we'll just fire Clifford Tatum. We'll just fire him, okay? And I'm going, no, Paul has thought about this already. And in comes Senate Bill 1933, which gives us oversight. It originally had oversight over the whole state, but Tom had to take an amendment because it was a big fight on the floor. So it got pulled down to just Harris County. So we've got oversight. We would have, and so I think we can take our elections back. Are you excited about this?
Yeah.
Okay. Come on, let's talk about it. Now, it's so important because look, I'm just horrified at what I saw. This Clifford Tatum, he failed 2 elections in 12 and 14 in DC. A DC activist in a 95% Democrat town said it was like voting in a third world country. Okay, and 10 years later, he runs an election, and guess what we were voting in? A third world country. This guy refused to get millions of ballot sheets out of the warehouse and to the polls. And how many people tried to run a poll? How many people were undersupplied on ballot paper? Okay, it's preposterous in the 21st century. It's not even easy. It's malevolence. Okay, it's not incompetence anymore. It's malevolence. Okay, and you know what? Harris County, they're going to sue again. Well, they've sued since 2020, and because of the Attorney General's office, led by Ken Paxton, throughout all these suits, we've won every time. And now John Scott is in the job, and he was the Secretary of State who helped me win these suits from Secretary of State. So we're going to beat him again, and we have to. Because you can't let corruption overwhelm the election process, because the Republic is lost at that point. So Tom's bill is, let's say, when you had to get around my bill, whatever.
I'm the shepherd.
Well, I just wish it was your bill, then it would have been vetoed, okay? There'd be no veto threat. But anyway, now, let me tell you another little bill Uncle Paul snuck into the process. You all saw Wayne DeCipino and Mattress Mac just screaming mad on television, 500 media points. They wanted to get the information from who? Lena Hidalgo, election administrator. Because guess who was not giving them any information? The county. This is 8 months after the election. And they said, you know what? There's a lawsuit. There's a lawsuit, Bill. There's a lawsuit. We can't give you the information because there's a lawsuit. Okay? Well, hogwash. It's the public's information. So we passed the bill 1910. It flew out of elections. It got out of state affairs, but it hit the calendar too late. So there was another bill called House Bill 3033, okay, by another one of our Landgraf, I think, and it got added on and it got passed there.
Yes.
So there's no election exemption to public records anymore. Because why should there be? Okay? I mean, that was just a dodge by leftist progressives, Tom, to keep people from, getting the information for 22 months, just like Al Vera thought, until its dying day, when he died in the Capitol, okay? And we literally have named 2 bills after him, okay? Because, which bill was it? 1933. Tom did it, okay? And then Brian Hughes got carried away and did it on another bill.
The Eric bill.
Yeah, the Eric bill. So Al went 2 for 2 even after he passed away. Because that's what a patriot can do, even in death. And I'll tell you this, it was a bad day when I know we got a call from DPS and it said, you've lost a constituent. And it's like, who is it? Al Vera. Not a good day, okay? But we pulled it together because everybody was up there testifying that day. James Buntrock was testifying. Cindy Siegel was testifying. A whole bunch of friends were up there. Ed Johnson was up there. He had followed, Al into literally, 20 minutes behind him on the road. And so we all wrote, in my office, a resolution. And for the first time ever, somebody, a great patriot, 22 drops behind enemy lines in Vietnam. Okay? Think about that. 22 drops behind enemy lines of Vietnam. That's why he was never scared of any politician. He's looked at a lot more problems than some crazy politician, okay? And he survived that and became one of our foremost champions of election reform. So we got that out, that resolution out, and a kind of a funny, poignant moment, right before we went to the floor with it, Dan Patrick, who has loved the Bears forever, said, now Paul, can you handle this? Because it's gonna be emotional, okay? And believe me, I went through in 4 hours everything. You lose a friend, you lose a really great guy, you lose a patriot, you have to go through grief, you have to go through sorrow, you pop out of it, and you're gonna do something for his life, okay? And I had the Secretary of the Senate read the whole resolution because I wanted everybody to get Al's full measure because that's what he gave everybody. Did you know that he's the guy on the FedEx box that invented the arrow on the FedEx box? Still used today. Brilliant guy, okay? So Dan said, now Paul, because we're all friends and Tom, they actually live on the same street, whatever. He was worried I was gonna crack up. And I said, no, Al deserves better. So I got up and just ripped it on a extemporaneous eulogy, life celebration of his life, because what Al Vera did is he went to work every day. Didn't matter whether it was the Army, didn't matter whether it was trumping, 22 night drops, didn't matter coming to the Capitol. That was work for Al, and he loved it. So I got through it all, and my friend on the podium was cracking up, okay? All right? Because it was a very emotional day for all of us, okay? But it shows you that we're not gonna quit, okay? We got 4 Republican judges through last time, okay? We're not gonna quit, okay? Al's not gonna let us quit, okay? Because he already won 2 bills for us in a year that not a lot of election bills passed, only 8, and over 2/3 of them, or at least 60% of them, are Harris County people that passed them. Tom, Briscoe, Valerie, me, I think Mikey had one too, okay? That's Schofield, if you didn't, sorry, we've known him when he was. Well, Mikey's always been tall, but he was like even thinner than he was, I don't know, I mean, he's always been like a kid, but anyway, but he's an old kid now. And so I bring all that to you because that's a day in our life. So they did something, I think, later that day, and because they named the bill for Al. And I'll leave you with this. For the first time in 38 years, we sent DPS up to get the flag off the Capitol. First time in 37 years. So we got that huge 14-foot flag, and James Buntrock is building a display case for that. Because I want everybody in the future to walk into that Republican Party and see what did this guy mean and what are we fighting for? Because we're fighting for the soul of our country. In this county, we're fighting to roll back leftist progressive socialism and corruption, okay? We're fighting, we got a bill, which I hope doesn't get vetoed either, the DSC bill, Jatan's bill, that big reform bill, okay? Rodney Ellis's wife has a cut of every deal that comes out of the Houston Housing Authority, and those are taking apartments off the tax rolls for 99 years and then splitting the partners the money without lowering rents. That's not a business the state of Texas ever thought they were in, and that's what that bill stops. So we're fighting corruption everywhere we can. And as long as I'm doing it, I'm not gonna give up. I don't care who's yelling, hopping mad at the moment. Everybody eventually calm down and we're gonna get stuff done, okay? But we've got to fight this corruption, all right? And we're winning because these election bills will change the face back at Harris County, back to where it should have been. And it will stay there because we've got oversight, right? All right, from Secretary of State, all right? And I'm excited about that because I'm excited that we're gonna take back the nation's 3rd largest county. Tom, people don't realize this. If this was an independent state, how many electoral votes would we have? What would you guess?
We probably have this county, this state.
No, this county is the state, 11, like Wisconsin. That's how big Harris County is. So Harris County's not too big to fail, but it's too big to ignore.
Right.
Okay? Because if this place goes down, how long do you think it will be before statewide elections are affected by this cancerous malevolence that comes out of these elections, that goes to all these other blueberries because they don't have DAs that will do any prosecution because they were funded by Soros, and now his son's taken over at age 37, and he's going to be there for another half a century, okay, to fight those people. So we're not quitting, okay, ever, okay, because we're winning. And they don't realize it, right? And I'm just in the Senate Army, okay? So, you know, that's the head of my post right now. And because we're winning this battle. They can't stand that we won this battle with these election bills. It has freaked them out coast to coast. But you know what's really cool? The doctor gave a good prescription for one, okay? Okay. And Briscoe gave me a good, good legal opinion on the other. And Uncle Paul slammed them both home. And so we're going to take this one, we're going to take these people down in this county because they're corrupt, and we're going to replace them with people that can run elections and fair and honestly. God bless you.
Questions for Paul and Tom? We got them both up here now.
Okay, well, we live in this era where, people are permitted to do whatever they can get away with. And so he talked about property tax. We passed a bond election a while back to fund flood control.
Right.
And that money was repurposed in the People's Republic of Harris County.
Sure.
For all other kinds of agendas. Can they do that? Can they do,
Yeah, unfortunately they can. Now we have.
Why can they get away with that? Why isn't that illegal?
Okay, look, I don't need two of these. All right, that one's working. Oh, that one's working? Okay, this one's not, all right. All right, now, the problem is that when a bond election passes, okay, the laws are weak about the remaining amount of bond receipts and what can be done with them. Now, what they really did was change the direction of the bond because they put in, what was it, Tom? It was livability, or what was it, some new concept or something that they changed from the watersheds that Cagle and Emmett and everybody agreed with, okay? So they rewrote how the bond was to be applied. What's that?
Yeah, how it's going to be used.
Yeah, how it's going to be used. And that's a problem, because quite frankly, if you got 2/3 of the vote, then in the Senate and the House, you could basically do anything with the Constitution. You got 4 votes on Commissioner's Court, you can do almost anything. That's a sad, so we are forced to do bills like the ones we did, unfortunately, some of them that are being vetoed, to try to stop all this, okay? And so it's a game of you remember what was the game of hedgehog where you hit the, okay. Whack-a-mole, that's it, right, sorry, I think it's one last hedgehog. Anyway, whack-a-mole, and that's what we're in. Great question. Okay?
The commissioners are the officers of the flood control district too.
Right, and now we did have a demonstration bill that we filed that would take, Dennis Paul and I filed it. He couldn't even get a hearing in the House, so we didn't waste time in the Senate. That would take those commissioners and make them appointed by the governor and make it a regional operation. Because really, water knows no county boundary. It doesn't. Okay, but so we're looking at an alternative solution, Howard. Yes, sir.
Uncle Paul, where we at on school choice?
Where are we at on school choice? Well, you got his vote, and you got my vote, okay? And we'll get the bill out of the Senate like we had the last time, even when I carried, I can't even remember when I carried it, like 19 or something. Brandon Creighton's gonna get that bill out of the Senate over and over again. Now, there's been a new committee created, right, Tom?
That's right.
And you want to describe it since it's House?
The speaker appointed a brand new sort of select special committee and he did this last time too, when it became clear that a certain committee wasn't set up to move a certain piece of legislation, so he created a special committee that had broad powers to be able to move certain, forget which one it was during the special session. We did this last time too with one of the bills, but I don't remember what it was.
Oh, it was not gender, yeah, it was sports, I think, wasn't it?
Yeah, I think it was. I
Right.
think it was the women's sports bill. And so this committee is sort of set up in a way that it essentially has broad sweeping powers to handle any issues related to student achievement, student success, school finance, all that stuff. So my guess is that the two bills will go into that committee. I was looking at the membership. Of course, there are some people on there that you're kind of like, but there's some people on there that kind of like, yay, like Cole Hefner's on there. He's a good conservative from East Texas, and he's with us. And we got Will Metcalf from Conroe, who's going to be with us.
Yeah,
on
because he
this
switched
issue.
his vote, he used to be
That's right.
against, he's not.
Now he's for. And so I think and Harold Dutton's on it, and Harold is like die-hard school choice. So that's the committee it's going to go to. It's still going to be chaired by Brad Buckley. Brad is very interesting. Brad's actually pro-school choice, even though his wife is an administrator, I think, or principal. She wasn't going to be an administrator now, but he sees the value in it. And so I think we're going to get something, but like I was saying to you earlier, I think that the catch-22 is for all of the rural Republicans who cannot be convinced, last name Ken, first name
James.
No. You have to tie it to the school finance bill so that they literally don't get one without the other. And I think that's the only way we can. That's what Brandon did. He basically
He
took
tried.
Ken's bill and stuff.
I don't think
said-
convincing Ken King's gonna make any
No,
difference.
no, so you have to go around.
We don't do it. Last question, who's got it?
I've
Bill.
got a couple if I can, Paul. Secretary of State, we haven't had a great success historically getting engaged in Harris County, right? I know you've got a relationship with Nelson, so
Sure.
I'm curious the politics on that. Or will we actually get them to do things now?
I think let's make sure the bill gets into law, and I think you'll be happy. Let's put it that way, Bill. Okay?
Yeah.
And then, by the way, there's two audits, there's an audit ongoing right now, okay? So they've got, the existing 2020 audit came out, but there's a 222 audit coming. And by the way, there's now 21 election contests, and I'll give you a hint. There was really good news, because I hear there's internal communication on that day that there might have been over 70 polls that they knew they were telling people to walk away, which you can't do under federal law. You're supposed to come, you can't tell people, hey, go find another poll. But they were out of ballots, out of bad machines, or whatever. So I'm very excited now about the prospects for the 21 people that, especially the ones that are suing under voter suppression. Taylor's got the old-fashioned case, you gotta count every vote by one. I'm pretty happy, because see, John Scott was the one that started all those audits. He's now the AG, so he'll defend them too. So it's great to have, I call him the Secretary General now, holding down the AG's office, because he really understands the voter issue.
One last for both of you. Can you either you guys comment on the Paxton case?
I can't.
So let me say one thing. The other thing is, so Ingram is gone.
Yeah.
Right? And so from what I've heard and my colleagues that are really knee-deep in the weeds on a lot of this stuff, they really like his replacement. They feel like she's a lot more responsive to, understands the problem. Well, first of all, believes there is a problem.
This was the guy that was head of the elections as Secretary of State, Bill, and his last performance, this was when Al was still alive, was he walked into the education committee, the elections committee in front of Reggie, and started saying, the problems in Harris County aren't really that bad. Why are you all worried about it? He was shilling like I'd never seen. And the new Secretary of State, Jay Nelson, he was gone within 24 hours.
She's sure.
Right.
Like Jane Watt.
Okay.
In fact, I actually wore her pin when I laid out 1933. I took my little house pin off and I put my Secretary of State pin on.
And that was a secret message I
It
didn't
was.
see.
And now I'm so excited. I found
I
out
was
about
like,
it.
hey, I like your pin. I was like, wow, good for you. Okay, so the Paxton thing, so, here's what I can say about this. So I was not there, and I'm glad you brought it up, because I did want to make sure everybody in the room knew. The reason I wasn't there is because my oldest son graduated from high school that weekend. And I've missed soccer games, I've missed ballet, swim meets. I was not gonna miss that once in a lifetime watching my son graduate from high school. So
Right.
I'm a family values guy first, always have been. That's what I campaigned on, and I practiced what I preached. Wasn't gonna miss it. They wanted to vote me, even though I wasn't there. I said, no, you can't do that. If I'm not there to hear the conversation, I don't know how I would have voted. Then somebody wanted me to put a note in the journal saying how I would have voted if I'd have been there. I said, you guys debated this for, 5 hours? And I heard none of that. None of it. So I didn't take a position on it. I haven't publicly said one way or another, because I literally missed the whole conversation. What I know is that, about 72 hours before my son graduated from high school, we were told that there was gonna be a hearing and that we should try to watch it. Well, I'm busy, we're all busy. I mean, we were working on 1933. And so, I caught a few minutes of it, but I didn't get to watch the whole thing. So, I can tell you honestly, with a straight face, I don't know how I would have voted on it, because I missed the whole thing. But well, let me say this, I thought it was very interesting. So I went back and I talked to a lot of my colleagues, and some on both sides of it, and this is what I can gather. It was a very, very tough vote. There were a lot of people who were very conflicted. I talked to several people who came on the House floor thinking they were gonna vote one way and then changed their mind after hearing the conversation. Some went from being for to against, some went from being against to for. You see our own delegation of House members, of Harris County Republicans, was divided on this. There were some that were for it, some were against it. I have not, however, heard anybody who voted against the impeachment who thinks that he's innocent of all charges. That thinks that there's no, smoke and fire, or whatever the analogy is. They just didn't like the process. They felt like it was rushed. They felt like it wasn't the same process.
Thank you, Paul. He hasn't visited us in a while.
So those are the only objections. I'm not kidding you when I tell you, everybody I've talked to, and I haven't talked to everybody, but the people I talked to specifically who voted no, I have not found one person who, after listening to 5 hours, could look me in the eye and say, he didn't do anything wrong. Everybody thinks that he did plenty wrong. They just didn't like the process and the way that it was done, and they didn't feel comfortable voting. And I don't know, if it had played out over a whole month, maybe it would have been unanimous, like it was with Brian Slade. But anyway, that's what I know to tell you, and that's kind of where I am, because honestly, I feel like I missed the majority of the debate on it, so I really don't know. Yeah.
I'd like to know if that Saturday afternoon,
Grab a mic, they can't hear you back here.
I'd like to know if that Saturday afternoon they spent on it stopped us from getting any bills passed that would have gotten through at the last second.
We were already done passing bills at that point, and there weren't enough conference committee reports left to do that we ran out of time. So it wasn't like, if you remember last session, what happened in the House was that the Democrats walked out on the last night, and so we couldn't finish the conference committee reports that were left to do, including the election integrity bill, SB 7. That didn't happen this time. So there were no bills. This whole proceeding played out after the deadline for the bills that passed. I literally got the last bill out, and that was the ESG bill that I told you, that was days before. I'm trying to remember, because that was kind of all happened in blur, but I actually don't think that we were even aware that Tuesday that this was coming up. We were kind of like, yay, we're done, we passed bills, and then it was kind of like, hey, watch this hearing kind of thing. So now they've been investigating it for a long time, and so I don't know. I wasn't there and didn't get a chance to ask some questions. I would have liked to ask some questions about, why did you do it this way? When last time there was sort of more of a public trial kind of discussion about this kind of thing, so I don't know. But it didn't kill any bills.
Lady here has a question.
It's on, okay. I guess my question was, Paxton was overwhelmingly re-elected. Is this going against the will of the people? And why didn't they do this before?
Those are good questions. So all I know to tell you is that, number one, I remember very clearly, it was towards the end of February, early March, when he sent people, not him personally, but people came through my office saying, hey, we're gonna ask for $3.3 million of taxpayer money so we can settle this whistleblower lawsuit thing, and, are you cool with that? And I'm like, God, the taxpayers really have to bail you out of a lawsuit kind of thing? Because that, I don't know, that doesn't seem right.
Can you just say no?
And so what they decided to do, and I guess none of us really knew about this, because general investigating has the ability to do these investigations, right? That's what that investigation was all about, at least initially, was, is this appropriate? And should the state be involved in this, and what is the ramifications of this? So that's how the whole ball got rolling. This wasn't like a witch hunt where it was sort of like, we're out to get the guy kind of thing. It was, he did something that caused somebody in the House, a certain committee chairman who's in charge of this committee, to say, you know what, we should probably look into this just to make sure that we're doing the right thing. And then they're kind of like, wow, there's actually a lot of fire here where there's smoke. I mean, there's a lot of evidence that there was wrongdoing. If you go back and you look at the things that are laid out there, these are pretty bad things. And I will say this, in all fairness, I really hate corruption. I really do. And it really, really upsets me as a person who prides himself in, I don't always tell people what they want to hear, but I never lie to people. My yes is always yes, and my no is always no, and that's where, on my tombstone, I wanted to say he kept his word.
Amen.
We got one last
And
question.
that is not what the body of evidence shows is going on with him as Attorney General. And so I hope he gets a full, transparent opportunity to sort of explain his side of the story and all this kind of stuff. But I'm not aware that anyone has come forward from his team and denied that he illegally fired whistleblowers, that he abused power by hiring a guy's own private attorney to act as an improperly deputized special prosecutor, and then against the law allowed that person to go to a grand jury and obtain subpoenas to intimidate business associates of this business partner who was in the process of undergoing foreclosure on some of his properties. Man, it's just, there's a lot of stuff that you look at and you're just like, whoa. And for the record, just one more thing. For the record, this is exactly why many of you know I was a big supporter of Louis Gohmert in the last primary cycle.
Yes.
Because I wanted a conservative, and I kind of wanted to get beyond this whole thing. So I supported Ken in the runoff. I supported Ken in the general because I want a conservative person. But above all, I really care a lot about ethics. I really care a lot about morality. And I really am not comfortable with the idea that we should support somebody because we like the way they vote when we know that they do bad stuff. I want the most ethical, honest person we could get at all times, but as long as they're conservative. I don't want an honest neighbor.
Give Tom a hand.
Yeah.